everyone, it's Anne from Soulful Surrender. I wanted to talk with you today about an interesting topic that came to me yesterday. And it's about unwinding our nervous systems in order to heal and in order to come back into alignment with our soul or our soul's blueprint. This is absolutely crucial information for the age in which we live, and it's crucial for our children, for ourselves, for our culture, for our society. So really quick background on how the nervous system works so we can begin to unwind what it means to unwind our nervous system. This will be particularly of interest for people who have anxiety, even for people who have depression, for people particularly who have gut issues, ding, 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 more so in the past now, but this is part of what I have learned in order to heal and get well. This is also of particular interest to those of us who want to step in fully into our soul's blueprint. So it's really very interesting information. So our nervous system essentially runs our entire body. There's really nothing it doesn't touch. It plays a substantial role in our metabolism. So how much weight we carry and what our bodies do with our nutrients after we eat. It runs our endocrine system, so all of our hormones. It certainly runs our digestive system. Our digestive system essentially is an organ of the nervous system as much as it is an organ of digestion. It will run our brain. It will determine how we sleep, whether we sleep at all. It will determine our mood. It will determine pretty much everything. So within our nervous system, we have two branches. We have the sympathetic nervous system and we have the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is otherwise known, we know it as our fight or flight part of our nervous system. So that's the part of us when we get all geared up about something. So historically, before the age of technology, likely before the industrial age, our sympathetic nervous system or our fight or flight nervous system was used in an as needed capacity, and it was used fairly infrequently. It was used as quite literally what it was meant to be used for, as a survival mechanism. So if we were being chased, or if we were doing the chasing, trying to get a meal, if someone was trying to hurt us, if we had to get up quickly and run or move in a quick manner, that activates the sympathetic nervous system. When we're in that fight or flight, which is an incredibly, it's just as important as the parasympathetic nervous system. When we're in that state, certain physiological responses will unravel. Our hearts will speed up. We will get blood to our muscles very, very quickly so we can act, we can react. But other things happen, like our digestive system slows right down. So it essentially, in some ways, shuts off when we're in fight or flight, because the last thing our bodies need, for example, when we're being chased by someone or when we're running away from something or towards something in, some amped up mode, our bodies say, okay, what are the systems in the body that are most crucial at this time? Well, digestion sort of takes a back seat. Brain function takes a back seat. A number of responses, physiological responses, simply take a back seat so that we can, in this adrenaline rush, get up and run or fight. The parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is the nervous system that we refer to often as our rest and digest nervous system. So this is when we're feeling calm. This is when we might sit down with our family or our friends to a wonderful meal, and we've got great, chatter going on, and we're relaxed. And, so when, for example, if we sit down to a lovely meal and we're in rest and digest, we can actually digest our meal, our brains work properly. The body carries a very different function within the parasympathetic state or the rest and digest state. The problem, of course, today, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, both on a cultural level and probably on a personal level, because most of us in this culture cannot escape this, or so it would seem. Most of us live far too often in the sympathetic or fight or flight state. And so we wonder why our digestion is faulty, our metabolism isn't working as well as it could, why our circadian rhythm is off. Our circadian rhythm, by the way, regulates much more than just sleep, but we all know how crucial it is to be able to sleep and completely relax and let go in order to have the energy, the brain power, in order to get up the next day and be able to go about our day in a rested and now re-energized fashion. So we'll go over just some of the reasons why we find ourselves sitting more and more in this fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system state. So probably one of the biggest contributors at this point is our hyperconnectivity, and that is our lovely technology, which we have really allowed to overtake and in a lot of instances run our lives. And in many instances, we've allowed it to addict us. So when we constantly have a cell phone in our hands, in our pockets, and that's the health repercussions of that is an entirely different topic, but they're significant and they're cumulative, and we already know that they pose real problems down the road for us on many different levels. But just that hyperconnectivity through our social media accounts, through texting, through instant messaging, we know now, studies have told us and are showing us, there was one recently in 2017, that when people send an email and wait for its response, we go into fight or flight. It's as simple as that. And the reason we may not connect with an elevated heart rate or perhaps a bloated feeling in the belly, because if you're doing this and you've eaten, let's say, you're not going to digest your food properly or at all in that moment, during that time. And so you don't know why you're feeling bloated, why you've got gas, why you've got diarrhea, why you're constipated. You don't know why, perhaps, if you start to look into the body, your jaw is tense, your shoulder blades get bunched up, your hands are fisted, your hips have, turned inward and have gotten really tight and compact. Those would be the reasons. So we could run through the litany of reasons how we get wound up and tight, and we find ourselves sitting in this very contracted, clenched, unrelaxed, and pretty stressed out state. But you already likely know what those are. I want to talk with you about unwinding the nervous system in order to heal and move back into that soul space that so many of us are wanting to move into, that very authentic space. So one of the first things that we can do on the heels of speaking about our hyperconnectivity is disconnect. And this is like background chatter now. We find it on our social media accounts, ironically enough, disconnected, but we don't. And we're not yet understanding how crucial it is to, at certain points throughout your day, to say, I'm not going to anticipate anything. If someone sends me a message, a text, an email, a tweet, they Instagram something, I don't need to look at it immediately. The world is not going to end. I can say in a bit. I know that's not always possible if you're, especially through your work, if you're working with a project, but you're not working with a project 24 hours a day. And at some point, you're going to need to disconnect. So, can you disconnect for 30 minutes in the morning between your breakfast and your lunch? And if that means shutting your cell phone off, closing your computer down, can you do that? Can you allow yourself the act of self-love and kindness in order to step back for a minute and really just be with yourself? Because when we talk about disconnecting, a number of people might say, well, then what? Because it's just become such a massive part of our mentality and our behavior to be hyper connected that we don't really know what to do when we disconnect. I know someone very, very well that when he would go fishing in the summertime, we would all be up at our cottage, and he would go fishing and he'd have a cell phone in his hand the entire time. That's relaxing. Anywho, so can you disconnect for 30 minutes, 15 minutes between your breakfast and your lunch? Can you shut things down over your lunch hour? Can you say, I don't need to be gotten, I don't need to be pinged, dinged, slinged, whatever, over my lunch? Can I shut her down? Can I give myself another 15, 20, 30 minutes between lunch and the end of my workday or dinner time? And then after dinner, can I shut it down completely? Can I shut my computer off? Can I turn my cell phone off? Can I resist the urge to go look, go back, go look, check. Can I resist that urge? So what might we do instead? Well, this is part of the unwinding process. Can I actually sit with myself? Can I sit with myself? Can I actually jump back into my body become embodied again, because what we don't understand is that in this world of ours, as we submerge ourselves in this hyperconnectivity, we actually become quite disembodied. We leave ourselves. It's really hard to know if, let's say, we're in fight or flight in a moment, so our heart rate is a little bit elevated and we don't know it, but we're clenching our jaw and our shoulder blades are tight and maybe our fists are balled up. If we're constantly on something that is taking us away from ourselves, we can't know what's going on inside of ourselves. It's impossible. We leave our bodies in that moment. Soul work and any kind of healing work is all about coming back into the body, reconnecting in some quiet space, preferably alone, ideally in nature if you can, and just noticing what's there. You cannot change what you're not aware of. So if you have some kind of a health problem, which most modern health problems, when I say modern health problems, I'm going to refer to the autoimmune diseases. I'm going to refer to any of the exhaustion, the diseases of exhaustion like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, any of these diseases of what I would call deficiency. And deficiency is really a disease of leaving the self, going out and saying this is no longer important. That's what a disease of deficiency really is. So when we talk about re-inhabiting or re-embodying our bodies, we want to hop back in, but we need to be really quiet. We need to take some time to sort of feel around and see what's there. So you might go somewhere where you can be quiet for 15, 20, ideally minimum 30 minutes, and just look around. You might want to start with seeing where, because this is usually the easiest place to start, seeing where in the body you're holding tension. And it's often the same places for people. So I tend to hold my stress in my right shoulder blade. That's when I know I'm sort of a little bit, contracted and tight. And for some people, a lot of people actually, it's their jaw. They tend to, really clench down, hold in their jaw. For some people, it's their hands. My husband holds his hands like this. For some people, they feel it in their solar plexus. Some people, they have a lump in their throat. Some people, it's between the eyebrows. Some people, it's headaches. It's tension headaches. And so you go to that part of you where you feel like you're holding, and can you just walk in with just some awareness? You're not trying to figure it out. You're never trying to figure it out. That information always comes to you. You don't go get it. It appears to you normally, always in a relaxed, open, and surrendered state. It will appear to you. So trying to figure something out, in my experience, is utterly futile. So our only job is to relax into what is there. So one of the first things that we can do is, once we notice where we might be holding our tension in the body, and by the way, we will hold tension in the body because our bodies are habitual. We're just simply creatures of habit, and you would think that we would be creatures of good habit, But any habit will gain momentum. And once we have a momentum going with something, even if it feels like shit, we just keep moving in that direction because it becomes familiar. It becomes the familiar response. We literally create neural pathways that support and say, hey, remember that? We need to go back to that response. Even if it's a negative response or a damaging response, we will still go back and back and back if we do it enough. So you may find, and I would venture that you will, that you hold tension even when you're not worrying about something, even when you're not currently stressed out about something. You will find that your places are still tight, contracted, and tense. So you start by going to that place. And one of the most overlooked, simple, and yet most profound practices that we can ever endeavor with ourselves is to approach something that doesn't feel that great within ourselves with some level of acceptance. And that's harder than you might think because we're taught to not accept ourselves. It's subliminally messaged to us and it's overtly messaged to us. So at some point when we want to really start healing our stuff and move back into that soul alignment, we need to be able to say okay to just what is there. We can't get to P before, that's a bad letter because now you think I'm talking about urine. We can't get to D before we look at A, B, and C. It's impossible. So we go to what's there to start. We go to what's there. And so we might notice a tension somewhere, let's say in our throat. A lot of people carry these lumps in their throat. We might notice a tension in the throat. So can you first go to that place, to that space, and just observe? You're just observing. And you might, as you go into that observational space, you might initially become even more tense because we're taught to override things. We're taught positive thinking only. It's utterly useless, actually quite damaging, because and the body knows it because it's not the truth in the moment. And the body knows what is truth versus what is not truth. And so when we come at something that feels like hell and we say positive thoughts only, the body says, this is bullshit, lady. And we will actually tense up even more. So we go to what is there. We go to what is there. And let's say we go to what is there, and let's say more fear comes up because now we're looking at it. So you go to the fear. You go to whatever is at the very top layer. We go to the very, very top layer. And can you simply meet it? So let's say we go to the throat. There's a lump in the throat, and often lumps in the throat, anything around the throat, is about speaking our truth. It's even about living our truth. And so we go there, and let's say there's something we've been avoiding for most of our lives. And so for most of our lives, we've walked around with a lump in our throat. And so we go there, and we can feel this, perhaps even terror, come up in that part of our body, or extreme fear. Can we go there and meet that extreme fear with some compassion, just like you would if you were sitting with a really good friend and they looked at you and they said, I am terrified right now. I'm absolutely terrified of something. You wouldn't go, oh God. Well, you might if you were really unaccustomed to giving yourself any semblance of comfort. That might be very hard for you to do with someone else. But most likely, you could look at them and you can say, well, you can talk to me, or it's okay. It's okay. We've all been there before. You would offer them empathy. I understand. I've been in that place before. And really, our wound up, tense places are simply asking for the same. Can you go there, in this instance, the throat, and just say, okay, I'm here. Remember, we're not trying to understand it. We're not trying to decode it. It comes to you when you're open enough. It comes to you. The understanding, if you need it at all, comes to you. So your job is just to sit and go there and be there. What really helps is to breathe. This is why meditation, yoga is so incredible, because they both get you into your body, and the breath work can really start to open up those very stuck places. So in the example of the throat, in the example of terror in the throat, can you go there? And if it's really hard for you, can you just start to breathe? And as you breathe, you will feel a sense of relaxation come over your body. And then perhaps you can even start to direct your breath into this space in the throat that's holding this fear energy, this terror energy. And maybe you feel your heart pounding because you think, what am I going to find in there? Or what if I break? What you might find in there is simply a feeling or a sensation that's asking to be felt. And so what if you break? All that breaking means is that it is the beginning of the breaking down of the tension, the holding, the held tension, the held belief systems, the held fears that have kept this part of your body in a tightly balled up space. And you may need to do just that for a while. If you're not accustomed to offering yourself space and compassion and empathy and just presence, you just may have to do that for a while until you're comfortable. And then the second part of this unwinding is to move into whatever space, whatever tense space you're working with within the body, a little deeper, and see if you can come into an even deeper acceptance of what is there. Again, we might not be able to even name what is there. That's okay. That's okay. What is there is probably a mystery. It may have roots in 6 lifetimes ago. We don't need to figure that out. We just don't. We come to this planet. This is a feeling planet. We come to this planet to feel, not to intellectualize, not to even analyze. We come here to feel. That is what we come to do. So can you move a little deeper into that space that is tense? And can you move into a little bit more of a self-acceptance? In other words, can you start to almost embrace what is there? So this is the part this is the part where many of you will be most interested. This is where we get into the soul work, the soul part of the unwinding of our nervous system to get back and realign with ourselves. Can you approach your hurt, tense, scared, angry, upset, abandoned, inferior, guilty, jealous, greedy, insecure, unworthy parts? We could go on. Can you approach them as you would imagine God, the universe, some unconditionally loving being would approach you? Can you go and sit in that awake, alive, curious, non-judgmental space that every single one of us has inside of us? How do I know this? Because we are that. These human garbs that we put on very temporarily are a purposeful distraction to that, so that we can then go, wait a minute, this doesn't feel so good over here, but I know there's something inside of me. There's something inside of me. And the whole act of enlightenment, of waking up, is to return. It's really the return to that space. That, because even enlightened people upon the planet will bump up against issues. They just no longer see them as problems. They no longer see them as something is wrong with me. They no longer see them as a new project that needs to be hammered out, analyzed, cataloged, and fixed. They're just present. They're just present. And so, can you go into that space? And notice, even as we're talking about this, I'm certainly sitting in a different energy, and words transmit energy, so you're likely feeling this as you're listening to this. Can you go to that open, eternal, curious place? And from that place, you will find it somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. From that space, can you go to your tension, your fear, whatever is up for you, and can you just be with it? Can you just sit beside it like you would a really good friend who needed comfort, who didn't want your advice, who didn't want you to fix them, who just needed your presence there, your love there, without any judgment? We've all had a moment, at least one moment in our lives, when someone has come to us, when we have been falling apart, and they've just been there. They've just been there. And it's just their presence that has allowed us to cycle, fall down that rabbit hole and completely let go in the moment. The amazing thing is, we all have that person that has, miraculously shown up for us in those moments. We all have that inside of us. Every single one of us. So when you can evoke that, when you can go and sit in that present space, you would be amazed how your body can unwind, relax, and heal. So give this a try. The more we're able to come and sit in this very, very present space, the healthier we're going to get, the more we align with that very space that so many of us are wanting to align with. But this is a real practice of moving out and away from this hyper-connected, busy, expectant world that we live in, and really unplugging, really disconnecting, and really jumping back into your own being. It's where you'll find everything. Everything is waiting for you in there. All of the relief, all of the joy, all of the openness, all of your inspiration, all of your incredible ideas are waiting for you there. So jump in and tell me what you think. Thank you.